Hi, everybody. DUGROZ here with DUGROZ Reports. Every Saturday morning, I record a live stream right here on this channel at 9:30 a.m. Central Time. During my most recent live stream, I introduced a new concept that I'm calling the PATH method for everyday spend in points and miles. And as the title suggests, this is a new idea, or at least a concept that I'm fleshing out about how to decide what credit cards to both obtain and use in your everyday spend to help you achieve the goals you want to achieve. I think you're going to like it enough that I decided to record it as a standalone segment here. If you like it too, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's dive in. All right, so we have the PATH method for everyday spend in points and miles. Clearly, using this computer-generated image, I am a park ranger helping you stay on the path. As we all know from all 8-bit video games and many video games since, if you are exploring, you need to stay on the path. There is danger when you wander off the path. This particular game being Legend of Zelda 2 Adventures of Link. So that's the analogy we're using. And of course, this is a creative acrostic, which we'll get to in just a little bit. So here's the problem we often encounter in our community. The big shiny object syndrome for spend, that is big multipliers. And by that, I mean, let's say you see a card has 5x on drugstores and you're like, whoa, 5x. We can tend to kind of want to obtain and use that card just because of that big multiplier. For example, the card drives the goal rather than the goal driving the card. So just because a card has a big shiny object that's a big multiplier doesn't necessarily mean we should use it. Let's say that it does have 5x at drugstores, but A, it's a specific currency that's hard to use, and B, you only spend about $112 a year at drugstores. I don't know that that would be a great fit for you. I'll give you some examples. The king of big shiny object syndrome is the American Express Gold card. Well, in some cases, that very impressive, very shiny 4x on dining and groceries might be worth it, but there might be other factors. For example, if you are like me and you do all of your grocery shopping at a Walmart, not a neighborhood market, but just a standalone Walmart, that's not going to code as groceries. So that takes away a lot of the shine off that big shiny object. The Wells Fargo Attune has lots of 4x categories. For example, pet supply stores. But if you don't have a pet, that doesn't really apply. The Hilton Honors Card. I love Hilton. This is a surpass here that we're talking about, not just the no annual fee Honors Card. 6x on groceries, gas, dining. But is 6x really all it's cracked up to be? We need to investigate possible pitfalls with that currency. And another example would be my beloved Wyndham Earner Business Card, which gets 8x on gas, but maybe you don't ever stay at Wyndham's. You don't ever use cottages.com. You never want to use Vacasa vacation rentals because you're like, vacation rentals, no, I need a maid with housekeeping. I don't want to have a checklist of like washing dishes and taking out the trash. Or maybe you don't even use gas stations because you have an electric car or something like that. You got to consider more than just the 4x, the 4x, the 6x, the 8x. So here's the art that my royalty-free images decided would be important. It's kind of like a blueprint. Actually, it's not royalty free. I paid for the royalties on Adobe Spark. The solution, the PATH method for everyday spend. This is a DUGROZ Reports idea, patent pending, patent pending, patent pending. So if you do use it, that's totally cool. Just be sure to give me credit. If you are a fellow content creator, just mention it in your description box or pinned comment or something like this, linking to this video. To be a little more specific, I need to give some disclaimers here. This is all highly subjective. So it's hard to put values on things like the kind of hotels you want to stay at. So run this through a grid of what it means for you. I'm going to do an entire example here. And the example today is going to be Hilton because that's one of my goals. How I feel about Hiltons and how you feel about Hiltons might be completely different. Secondly, this is a basic framework. It can change and adapt, so we want to remain flexible and make any changes that we might need to make as you go. And then also, this is for everyday spend, not sign up bonuses. Now, I think we all probably know that the best way to get lots of points in a short period of time is to get sign up bonuses. However, when you're not working on a sign up bonus, or maybe you're averse to too many sign up bonuses, this is a technique for determining how that regular non sign up bonus spend should be allocated across different cards. So, what is the path method? Well, I love acrostics. This is an acrostic. P, pick your travel goals. A, assess your ecosystem options. T, tailor point earnings to your spend. And yes, thank you, Uncle Luke. I realize I spelled Tailor wrong in this instance. I did fix it elsewhere in the presentation. H, harvest your rewards. We'll drill down on each of those in just a bit. P, pick your travel goals. So examples would be things like flying versus driving, economy versus premium cabin. There's a channel I used to listen to. It's not active anymore here on YouTube, called Waller's Wallet. The guy on that channel, his name is Dustin, is Dustin. I assume he's still around, just hasn't made any new videos recently. Would say something like, I would rather have lots of flights on the cheap rather than a few premium flights. So he was a big fan of flying economy. So obviously your goals are going to be very different if you only want economy versus if you're more like the rewards master and you always want the premium cabin, either premium economy or preferably business and first class. How about quantity versus quality? That's similar to the previous. Hotel versus vacation rentals, like I mentioned earlier. Maybe you're on team hotel where you're like, give me a maid, give me turn down service. I want breakfast downstairs. I want a restaurant in the hotel. Or maybe you're like, no, I just want something cozy, like a cabin, next to a cool old city wall somewhere in England. And you just want something unique, like when I went to a tiny house in West Virginia. Maybe you want some mixture of the two. Are you okay with using some cash? A lot, a little, none? I have a rule for my own family budget that travel has to pay for itself. So if I spend any money whatsoever on vacation, I have to figure out where it's coming from, even down to like eating at a restaurant. I have to budget for that. So maybe I'm cashing out some points at a penny each. I know. Maybe I'm doing bank account sign-up bonuses. Maybe I have authentic cash back cards like the Blue Cash Every Day from American Express or something like that. On the other hand, maybe you're like, nah, anything under $200, I just pay for it out of my family budget. That's fine. I would encourage you to look into doing a travel budget where you decide at the beginning of each year how much you're going to set aside. That way you're less likely to have runaway spending, but that's a sliding scale. And where you fall on that sliding scale will determine what your goals should be, or at least influence them. Do you have one favorite hotel? Are you a Hyatt fanboy, a Marriott fanboy, Hilton fangirl? That will obviously come into play. Do you have one favorite airline? And you're like, I am Team Delta. I am always flying Delta, either out of preference or maybe necessity, like if you live in a small regional airport that has very few flights. Or maybe you're like me and I'm like, I'm free agent, American, United, Southwest, Delta. As long as you get me there in reasonable comfort, I'm cool. Do you travel as a family, solo or a couple? Obviously, if you're traveling with one person versus 7 people, that's going to make a huge difference. How about domestic versus international? Maybe you have a really locked in schedule. Maybe your spouse is a teacher or something like that. And you can only fly certain times a year. So most of your travel is going to be domestic. Maybe your kid plays football or soccer and you can hardly ever get away. So it's like, we're taking long weekends to Florida, Virginia, California, Arizona, Idaho, West Virginia, whatever. But we don't even have time to leave the country. Maybe you're like, man, every time I travel, I am going to Europe or Asia or Africa. These things influence what your goals would be. And then how much are you okay with layovers? Are you wanting direct flights only? Are repositioning flights cool? I'm not going to get into these details, but just things to think through in terms of how you pick your goals. This is going to be hard if you're brand new to the game, but if you've been into points and miles for at least a year or two, you've taken some trips, have had a little bit of trial and error, you should be thinking like, what are some goals that I have for earning points in the not too distant future? I'm going to show you what my 4 goals are. I'll just list them first, then I'll go into a bit more detail. So this is for 2025 and 2026 and beyond. My family, I have 2 kids, so wife and 2 kids. There's 4 of us traveling. And this coming summer, we're taking a fairly big trip to Europe. After that, I'm feeling like probably it's going to be mostly domestic flights because my kids are working part-time jobs. They're very involved in sports, activities, those kind of things. So I'm going to be kind of stepping back to probably more domestic for a couple years. So here's the 4 goals. Number 1, flexible domestic flights for the reasons I just said. And by flexible, I mean, got to be a free agent. I'm not going to commit to United. I'm not going to commit to American. I'm not going to commit to Delta. Number 2 is Hilton's. I like Hilton's. Number 3, non-chain lodging. And number 4, rental cars. So to be a little more specific, number 1, flexible domestic flights. I live in Des Moines, Iowa, so it's best for me to be a free agent. It's hard to be loyal to Delta because I might get trips to Atlanta, Minneapolis, and Detroit, and that's it. Obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, I don't like more than 1 layover. The dreaded double layover on domestic, at least, is really stinky, and I dislike it. So in order to avoid that, I have to be open to any airline. Yes, that can even include Southwest. So you got the big 3 traditional airlines plus Southwest, generally 4 to pick from. There's also like Allegiant and Frontier that fly out of Des Moines, but unless it's like a perfect direct flight, that's probably not what I'm going for. So I want to be able to get cheap domestic flights. I wanted them to be flexible, so I don't really care what airline they're on. I don't care about status loyalty. I just want to figure out the best way to get flexible, inexpensive domestic flights is. Number 2 is Hilton's, and this is the one we're going to be focusing on today for the sake of example. There's pictures on the screen here of the Embassy Suites in Washington, D.C. My family stayed there last summer. One of the reasons I absolutely love Hilton's is because traveling with 2 teenage boys, we all just get a much better night of sleep and we're all way more comfortable if they have their own room. So we're generally looking for something like a king-size bed for my wife and I and a connecting room with 2 twin or queen beds for the 2 boys. Hilton is the only major chain that will do guaranteed connecting rooms at the time of booking, which is worth a lot to our family. Secondly, I have the Surpass card, so I automatically have gold status, and I really like the free breakfast or food and beverage credit, depending on where you're going. That really suits us well. I kind of like the synergy of earning Hilton points. It all just works together well. So Hilton's is one of the goals. The one we'll be using as an example today. Number 3 is non-chain lodging. So second only to Hilton, or maybe Hilton is second too, unique properties. And I'll just use examples because that's the easiest way to explain it. 4 of my favorite places that I've ever stayed are pictured on this screen. Top left is the Blue Wave Inn in Ashland, Wisconsin. That's a boutique hotel right on the shore of Lake Superior. We stayed in a 2 nights there back in 22, I believe. My boys have grown up a bit since then. That was very beautiful. Kind of, there's only like 5 or 6 rooms. They're all on the top floor. They all look out over Lake Superior. Can't book that through Hilton or Hyatt or Marriott or Wyndham. Just a standalone property. You can get through some portals, that kind of stuff. We booked it through the Capital One portal, I believe. Top right is an Airbnb. That was the tiny house in West Virginia, close to Blackwater Falls, the best waterfall in West Virginia. I only stayed there 1 night, but man, I love that lodging. Bottom left is the most serene place I have ever stayed in my adult life, and that is the Lundy Lodge in Wales. That was booked through cottages.com using Wyndham points. I still count it as non-chain lodging because even though I used Wyndham points to book it, it's because Wyndham has a partnership with cottages.com, which is sort of like a Vrbo, but only in the United Kingdom. Those are not pictures on the walls. Those are actual windows looking out at some sheep there in the rolling hills of Wales. And then bottom right was the loft in Accra. That was another Airbnb property in Accra, New York, which is in the Catskill Mountains. Just saw that recently, about a month ago. That was a great place to stay, very cozy. So I like non-chain lodging, and I want that to be part of what I do. I've kind of come up with this laundry sandwich technique where you stay at like a Hilton or a chain lodging at the beginning of your trip. In the middle, stay at something like an Airbnb that has a laundry machine so you can wash your clothes. That's clutch. And then at the tail end, stay at another chain hotel. So you've got chain hotels on the end, laundry facilities in the middle. That's the laundry sandwich. So Hilton's and this sort of property working together suits my travel style well. Number 4 goal is rental cars. And this is just because I like getting off the beaten path. We went to Wales over a year ago. We're going back this summer, and a lot of those rolling hills, there's no public transit whatsoever. So you have to rent cars. I really like renting cars, not because I have some intrinsic desire to drive, but because I like to get to out of the way things, little castles, waterfalls, monuments, presidents' graves, those sorts of things. All right, so that was the P step, pick. Let's move on to the second step, assess your ecosystem options. And the A and the T kind of go together. So we're assessing each of these goals, the flights, the Hiltons, the non-chain lodging, the rental cars. We're going to say, what's the best way to get this? Now, what's the best way to get this? What's the best way to get this? What's the best way to get this? And you have to come back to each of them. So in today's example, I'm going to assess my second goal, Hilton's. I'll plan to cover the other 3 in future live streams, maybe standalone videos. Assess is the longest step because you have to do it for each one of these. I'm not going to do more than one on today's video. You do repeat it for each goal, so you go through it each time. And then we're going to come back to this because that'll be part of my example. And then Tailor, I spelled it right this time, point earnings to your spend. Now you notice you're tailoring your point earnings to your spend. You're not tailoring your spend to your point earnings. You want to be careful for that. And the best way to do that is to have some kind of budget or at least an awareness of what you're spending. You'll see down at the bottom here, there's a spreadsheet. I'm fortunate that in 2018, the last year before I got into points and miles, I did a spreadsheet with all of our family budget. So I haven't revisited it fully since then. I've revisited a little, but it was good for me in the sense that before I even started getting into points and miles, I knew exactly how much we were spending on different categories. So I've adjusted it for inflation here, and we'll have some sample spending. Yes, you have to know your budget and spending habits, at least have a general idea, and then you have to project how much you'll earn using that budget and spending habits. That will help you decide which goal gets which category. So like groceries, for example, is that going to go to the rental car? Is that going to go to the non-chain hotels? Is that going to go to Hilton? Well, you have to do the whole breakdown to decide how to tailor your spend to meet each goal. And then you harvest your reward, just like the computer-generated guy in the bottom right-hand corner with his oversized novelty credit card. You're going to take it to the store and start your spending according to the plan you've just made. So go forth and swipe or tap, as the case may be. Stick to it. Don't abandon it just because, a new shiny object comes along 3 weeks after you make your plan and say like, oh man, that card is so beautiful. Look, it's purple. Stick to the goal. Now, I'm not saying you can't change, but at least stick to it unless there's a very good reason to change. You need to be willing to adjust. So if you start doing it and find out this just is not working, I'm not earning the rewards I thought I was earning, you got to be ready to do something else. But I would think more like adjustments after 3 months or 6 months, not after swiping the card twice. So let's assess Hilton, different ways to earn. It's sort of like playing Let's Make a Deal. So I'm Wayne Brady here. What's behind door number 1, door number 2, door number 3? There's, as I see it, 3 different ways I could possibly earn Hilton points. And as part of the assess step, I've already picked my goal of Hilton. As part of the assess step, I have to know which one of those methods am I going to use for everyday spend to earn lots and lots of Hilton points. Option number one is very obvious. Hilton has their own credit cards, and you're going to spend on those credit cards. Option number two is you're going to spend on American Express cards and transfer those points to Hilton. More on that in a little bit. Option three is you're going to earn cash back using cash back credit cards and then buy Hilton points, or maybe there'll be some conglomeration. So option one, spend on your Hilton cards. You've got your Hilton business card, you've got your Surpass and your Aspire here. Just for the sake of understanding, we're going to assume that you have all three. I realize somebody would probably say, but Doug, in real life, you wouldn't have all three. Before we even consider annual fees, let's just say, what's the best we can do? Sometimes if you illustrate absurdity by going to the extreme one way or the other, maximizing or minimizing, it just helps you know what's what. So with the business card, you're going to get 5 Hilton points everywhere. That's what it does. It's what it says in the box. Easy 5x everywhere. With the Aspire, you get 7x on dining. With the Surpass, you get 6x on gas and groceries. You also get it on dining, but since the Aspire is higher, we're going to go with that. You get 4x on online spend with the Surpass, but in small print I wrote pointless question mark, because in this hypothetical we also have the Hilton business, which gets 5x on everything. So let's just use that. That would actually be better. All right, so now we've got our plausible budget. I'm going to share with you. This is based on my 2018 budget adjusted for inflation. Yes, I actually nerdily went in and used like my consumer price index figures to increase these since then. So first budget item is dining. I spend about $5,000 a year on dining. I shoot for $500 or less per month, and I use a PayPal debit card, which kind of helps me stay accountable with that. That would actually be $6,000, but I don't always hit that top mark. So I think $5,000 a year is appropriate. Amazon, in our household, Amazon gift cards are almost like legal tender. So $4,000 a year on Amazon. Gas, $4,000 a year also. I should mention gas isn't just gas stations. It can also be like a slice of breakfast pizza at Casey's, stopping and buying a donut, getting, windshield wiper fluid inside the gas station. I don't do that very much. It's mostly snacks and actual gasoline. The occasional gift card could be mixed in. Walmart, $10,000 a year. That's pretty self-explanatory. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we do most of our grocery shopping, toiletries, printer paper, just light bulbs, the normal things of life come from Walmart. And that's about $10,000 a year. Seems like a lot. That's what it is. Grocery, like these are actual grocery stores like Hy-Vee or Ralph's or Safeway, $3,000 a year. Some, but quite a bit less. Telecom, this would be cable, internet, and cell phones for the most part, that kind of stuff, $2,000 a year. Everything else, $25,000 a year. Now, yes, I could break this down a little further, but I'm going to say $25,000 a year for the sake of simplicity. Some of that would be pharmacy. Some of it, a very small portion would be stores like Lowe's and Home Depot. A small portion would be dentist bills, doctor bills. Actually, a fairly large portion would be those kind of things. Things that are hard to pay in a categorical way. A lot of things you just pay bills online. Utilities, that's gas, water, electric, and trash, $4,000 a year. So all that put together, $57,000. So for a pretty average family of 4, not even counting your mortgage, just to live life is $57,000 a year. Wow. All right, so if we take that same plausible budget using all Hilton cards, how does that work out? The dining, 5,000, 7x using that Aspire comes to 35,000 points. The Amazon spending, put that at 5x on your Hilton business card, comes to 20,000 points. Gas, 6x on your Surpass, 24,000. Walmart, which is just going to be everything else, so you're using that business card again, 50,000 per year. Groceries, I'm getting 6x on the Surpass. That's 18,000 a year. Telecom, I'm going to use my 5x on the business card because there's nothing that can beat that. That's 10,000 points a year. Everything else, we're going to take that 25,000 times 5. You get 125,000 Hilton points a year. Utilities, also nothing better than the 5x. That's 20,000 a year. Add that all together on our $57,000 of spend. If we put it all on Hilton cards, $302,000. All right, so that was the first option. The second option is to spend on American Express cards. I think by now we all know that you're going to get things like the American Express Blue Plus, Blue Business Plus, 2x everywhere. And then I've got a business gold and a regular gold. You're going to get 4x on dining and groceries with your regular gold. You're going to get 4x on gas and telecom with your business gold. Now, the logic there is whatever your two highest categories are, choosing from a list of, I don't know, 6 or 7 categories, those are the ones that make you 4x. Gas definitely applies. The only other one that applies is telecom. And even then, it just says cell phones, but I'm not sure, like, if you get your internet through a cell phone company like Verizon, does that count? We're not sure. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, yes, all of that counts. Most of us know that you can convert your Amex points to Hilton points at a 1-to-2 ratio. We'll do that at the end of this. So here's that plausible budget again. I'm going to go a little faster this time if I can. Dining, we're earning 4x on the gold. You've got 20,000 points. With Amazon, we're earning 2x everywhere else. That's 8,000. With gas, we're earning 4x on the business gold, 16,000. Walmart, you're just getting your 2x everywhere. That's 20,000. Grocery, you do get 4x on your gold card, 12,000. With telecom, you get your 4x, that's 8,000. And everything else, 2x on your Blue Business Plus, 50,000. And then you've got your utilities also at 2x because I don't have anything better with Amex cards, that's 8,000. So adding that all together, 57,000 of spend, and you've done 142,000 Amex points. Now we have to convert that to Hilton. We all know Amex transfers to Hilton 1-to-2, but there are frequent transfer bonuses. Hat tip to Nerd Wallet here. I've listed all of the transfer bonuses since 2019. And as you can see, there's usually at least one a year, often more. 2024 was the only year that didn't have one, but you only had to make it from December of 23 to February of 25. So just a little over a year. There are frequent bonuses. Let's use 25% here. Let's assume we're patient. We don't transfer right away. We wait until one of those transfer bonuses. And 25% is the least impressive. So for the sake of being conservative, we're going to use that. Instead of 1-to-2, that would be 1-to-2.5. So with those calculations, the 142,000 Amex points that we earned become 355,000 Hilton points. So here's the scoreboard so far. Using Hilton cards only, we have racked up 302,000 points. Using Amex cards with the transfer bonus, we have racked up 355,000. So thus far, the Amex cards have actually come out ahead. But we've got one more option, and that's the cashback / buy points option. And the idea here is you're going to use all cashback cards for the most part, at least at the initial glance. We're going to use no annual fee cashback cards. 4% is what we're going to get on gas, and that's based on the PNC Bank Cash Rewards card. That gives you a straight up 4% back on a few different categories, but gas is the only one worth writing home about. I believe it's either 8,000 or 10,000 a year is the max you can get that on, but we only budgeted 4,000, so we're good there. We're going to get 5% back on utilities with the US Bank Cash Plus card. It has those categories you have to reselect every calendar quarter, and as long as you don't go over, I think it's $1,500 per quarter, or maybe it's $2,500, which we're fine on. You'll get 5% cash back on your utilities. And then for telecom, we're going to use the Chase Inc. Cash, of course, and get 5% cash back, which is actually payable in Ultimate Rewards. But let's say we use it as a cash back card, and we just cash it out. We're going to get 5% cash back on dining on the PayPal debit card, not pictured, but that's one where you can pick a category. I like to use it for dining. That's 5%. And then we're going to use the Amazon card, which I don't currently have, but I could hypothetically get. That gets you 5% on Amazon. It doesn't have an annual fee, but you have to have a Prime membership. Trust me, we would have a Prime membership either way. 3% on grocery with something like the Blue Cash Every Day from American Express. Since I don't have a lot of grocery spend, I'm not going to get the Blue Cash Preferred, for example. I'm just going to use the Blue Cash Every Day. All right, so here's that plausible budget one more time. On dining, we're going to get 5% back on the PayPal debit card. That's $250. On Amazon, we're going to get 5% back on the Amazon card from Chase. That's $200. On gas, we're going to get 4% with that PNC card. That's $160. At Walmart, the best we can do is kind of your 2X everywhere, which could be a City Double Cash. It could be a Wells Fargo Active Cash, whatever your favorite 2% everywhere card is. That's $200. Grocery, we're going to get 3% on the Blue Cash every day. That brings in $90. Telecom, 5% on the Chase Inc. Cash. That's $100. Everything else, we've got 2% on whatever your favorite 2% card is, maybe the Fidelity card, whatever, $500. And then utilities with that US Bank Cash Plus card, $200. So overall total, that gets $1,700 of cash back. Of course, we have to somehow turn that into Hilton points. So we all know that Hilton points can be purchased, and often, very often, Hilton points go on sale for a half cent each. Hat tip to 1 mile at a time. Here's a chart of when it's been on sale for the last year and a half or so, and it seems like they're on sale more often than not. For example, they weren't on sale from September 25th to October 8th of last year. You had to wait, a whole week and a half. December 31st to January 28th, you had to make it almost a month. And then from March to April, a little less than a month. So they are on sale quite a lot. And when they are on sale, they call it a 100% bonus. So you get 100% points for free compared to the penny per point price. That comes to half a penny per point each. $17,000 would buy you 340,000 Hilton points. Now, you may have lost track by now what the score is so far, so let's review. Hilton only cards, 302,000. If we do Amex cards, 355,000. And if you do cash back, 340,000. Now, at first blush, you might think, ooh, looky, Amex is the winner. But there's a factor we need to take into consideration. Those are annual fees. So with the Hilton card setup, we've got $895 in annual fees. With the Amex setup, we've got $700 in annual fees. And with cash back, we've got $0 in annual fees. So I realize there might be reasons to have cards other than the spending. But remember, the purpose of this exercise is not what do you want for sock drawer cards with benefits like, your quarterly credits or your biannual credits or whatever, or your status. It's where do you put your spend? So the end goal of this exercise is where you put your spend, not what cards do I have. So if we think about it that way, for a $0 annual fee, you can get almost the same amount of cash back as if you ported Amex cards. In my case, there really wouldn't be a reason to have a business gold and or a personal gold Amex card if I wasn't doing a lot of spend on it. So I think, if we think about it this way, you can take your annual fees, add 2 zeros, and then double it. So we've got 700, 7,000, 70,000, double that. That's 140,000. So if we use that half a penny conversion rates from dollars to Amex to Hilton points, 140,000. That takes this down to almost 200,000 that you have to dedicate to recover this amount. So I think cash back is a pretty clear winner in my judgment. Now that brings up another interesting point. What if I make one little change on cash back, this pretty gold card over here? That's the Robinhood gold card, which you probably have heard of. It's a card that gets 3% on everything. There is no sign-up bonus, unfortunately. There is a wait list, so this is all hypothetical. But let's just say hypothetically, if I did get on the wait list, which I put my name on it when I first started researching this, but I'm not off, and I swap out 2% everywhere on my hypothetical active cash to my hypothetical Robinhood Gold card, what would that look like? Now, I'm not going to read all of it to you here because it's the same as what we already did. The two categories we're changing Walmart from 2% to 3%, and we're changing everything else from 2% to 3%. So instead of $200, we're getting $300. Instead of $500, we're getting $750. So that's an extra $350 per year. So now we have $2,050 in spend. And if we, I think I said that wrong. I said an extra $250. I meant an extra $350 in spend. Sorry about that. Extra $350 in cash back obtained. Go with what the screen says, not what's coming out of my mouth if there's ever a conflict. You get that $350 extra for a $50 annual fee. Now, the Robinhood Gold card doesn't technically have an annual fee, but you have to have a Robinhood Gold membership, and the membership costs $50 a year. So that's how I came up with a annual fee of $50. Your 2050 Hilton points buys 410,000 Hilton points. So now if we do the math, cashback is bringing in the most points by far, even with considering that $50 annual fee. So this is a more fair comparison in my mind. And in my mind, if you have the budget that I do and you shop where I do, and we're not thinking about subs, we're not thinking about ancillary benefits, we're just thinking about spend, it's very clear that the spend to equal the Hilton goal should go on cashback cards. And this really isn't a surprise. Multiple people in the community have said the best way to get Hilton points is to just buy them when they're on sale for half a penny each, rather than putting a lot of spend on the Hilton cards and losing out on that opportunity cost. Another thought is, how about just the Surpass? What if I strike some sort of balance and I want to keep my Hilton Surpass for ancillary benefits, but not so much spending? Well, the math tells me there's no point in putting any spend on the Hilton Surpass unless I'm going for the free night certificate. Now, you do have the option of spending $15,000 on this card, and that will get you one free night certificate that you have to use within 12 months. So that might be worth it. That's kind of a value judgment. I'm going to leave it out of this particular video, but if you want to make your goal one stay per year at a really swanky Hilton or small luxury hotel or something like that, by all means, adjust your goal. The $50 quarterly credit helps offset the fee. In theory, if you value it at full value, you get more than the annual fee, because the annual fee is $150. You get $50 a quarter in credits. That's $200 in credits. I don't think you should value it at full value, but it helps. I want the gold status that comes with Surpass for two things: for food and beverage credit, or free food if you overseas, as well as that fifth night free benefit. I think a good blend for my use case is cashback for the spend, Surpass for the benefits. So you'll see in the little graphic down here, it's kind of got a foundation of the Hilton Surpass to get me that fifth night free, the food and beverage credits, the ability to, I don't know, just feel awesome for having the card. And then also the cashback cards on top of it, not exhaustive, just for the sake of illustration. $150 annual fee on the Surpass, $50 for the Robinhood card. All the others are no fee in this setup. That's $200. I'm going to say gold meals are worth $90 at a bare minimum. That's being ultra conservative. Now, what am I basing that on? I stayed at a DoubleTree hotel in Springfield, Illinois last fall, and I got $30 a day in food and beverage credit, and I used it all 3 days I was there. So that's $90. So even if all I do is one 3-day stay at a DoubleTree a year, I'm getting at least $90 in value. I know lots of Hilton fans like Cesar, like Uncle Luke, and many others would say, whoa, that's really conservative, Doug. I can easily get $150, $200, $600 a year in value out of that. I'm a conservative guy. What can I say? So add in the $200 in credits. I'm not going to give that full valuation. I'm going to say like half valuation, because if I spend $30, it's probably the equivalent of like a meal I could get for $15 at a casual dining restaurant. So I'll say that's half credit. So we're going to take the 90. We're going to take the 100. We're going to add it together. That's 190. Subtract it from the net annual fee. Subtract it from the gross annual fee, and we get a net annual fee of $10. Hopefully that made sense. So here's the annual fees I'm actually paying. I'm going to say the meals are worth this much. Half value of credit, which is what I value it at, it's worth this much. And 200 minus 90 minus 100, that's $10. So I get this whole setup for a net annual fee of $10. Now, the next step, like I said, the A is going to be the longest step. These next two are going to be much shorter, is tailor your point earning to your spend. So I need you to all remember, I have 3 other goals too. It's not just Hilton. So I can't realistically put all of my everyday spend towards Hilton and then meet those other 3 goals as well. I either have to save some of my spend for those other goals or abandon one or more of those. In future episodes, once I've done this for all 4, I'll figure out exactly how I'm going to break that down. Which category should be devoted to cash back for Hilton? Well, if we see the whole chart here, I think it's pretty clear. I want to make it these 5%ers. Those seem to be the ones that would have the biggest bang for my buck on some sort of cash back for Hilton strategy. So I like these particularly, the ones I put in the light blue color. Hilton's color is blue, but since the background's blue, I had to use this teal sort of color. My $5,000 of dining at 5%, that's 250. My Amazon spend at 5%, that's 200. My Walmart spend at 3%, that's 300. Everything else, that's a little tricky because within everything else, we've got things like pharmacy. We've got things like tap to pay with my US Bank Altitude Reserve, where I can get pretty good value tapping to pay. So I'm going to say like half of my everything else is going to be dedicated to Hilton spend just on my hypothetical Robinhood Gold. And then utilities at 5%, that's an easy one. That definitely goes towards Hilton. So my gut feeling for what I will save for the other goals, like boutique hotels, flights, and rental cars, um, here's some possibilities. For gas, since I don't have anything that earns 5% cash back at gas in terms of cash, I could use my US Bank Altitude Reserve, tap to pay. Almost every gas station has tap to pay nowadays. Maybe a few don't, but I'd say 90% do. Altitude Reserve, boom, that's the equivalent of 4.5% cash back as long as I spend it on travel, which I will. I could use the Freedom Flex when the rotating category is in season for gas. I could use my Wells Fargo autograph and get 3 Wells Fargo points per dollar, which maybe I could use that for something else, like transferring 1 to 2 to Choice, and then using Choice to book an I Prefer hotel, which is sort of like a boutique hotel. Wyndham, even though Wyndham is a hotel chain, I would use it for cottages.com or Vacasa. That would help me with my boutique hotel goal. US Bank Altitude Reserve helps with the rental car goal or flights or hotels, really any of those. Freedom Flex, yep, you earn those Chase points, and you could use that in the portal to book flights with 1.5. So lots of options there. My autograph actually earning 3x, and then that goes over to my Golden Ponies card, which is the grandfathered Visa signature card most of you probably don't have. I could book my flights at 1.5x in a portal that way. Grocery, again, Altitude Reserve for the same reason. Freedom Flex for the same reason. When that is the flavor of the quarter, grocery almost always appears at least once a year. I'm thinking about getting the Saver card too. So 3x on grocery over to Capital One. I could use the Capital One points to transfer to Wyndham, and then we're right back here to boutique hotels. Telecom, obviously that's going to be the Chase Sync Cash. And while 5x could be cashed out, I can use it for other stuff too. So I'm going to reserve that possibly for flights, portal. Maybe I'll transfer it to Aeroplan and use my 1.625 trick that I often talk about. And then everything else, I'm going to set aside half for either the Altitude Reserve, Freedom Flex on things like pharmacy. There's lots of things I can do with that everything else. Maybe it would just be cash back at 3%, and I just have to save it for a boutique hotel or rental car, something like that. So I'll get to that in future episodes, but that's kind of my gut feeling for what would be set aside for those other things. Bringing it back around to Hilton. So here's the tentative Hilton slice. And I say tentative because as I work out these other 3 goals, I reserve the right to change my mind, but this is what I'm thinking for now. Dining is going to be a 5%er, is going to pull in 250. Amazon's going to be a 5%er, is going to pull in 200. Walmart's going to be 3% on the Robinhood card, pulls in 300. Half of everything else is going to be 12,500. Again, 3% on that Robinhood card, $375. And then, of course, utilities using the US Bank Cash Plus, $200 at 5%. That is a total of $1,325 in cash back, which using my half a cent buy-in gets you 265,000 Hilton points. That's not enough to stay at a Hilton like every single time I travel all year long, but that would be pretty good. So like, let's just say, a common price might be, I'm making something up here, 40,000 points per room if I'm okay with like a Hampton Inn or a DoubleTree or a Garden Inn or something like that. That's, nice, but not super fancy. And then there's 2 rooms if I'm traveling with my family. So it's 80,000 points. So if I take 265, divide that into 80,000, that's about 3.5 nights every year. If I'm traveling solo, you can about double that. So I still might have to rely on some sign-up bonuses to kind of pad this, but it definitely takes a big step towards my love of Hilton goal. So what's the summary? What's the takeaway? I should use cash back for buying my Hilton points. I should keep the Surpass for the benefits, but frankly, don't put any spend on it unless I'm going for the free night certificate, which I'm probably not going to right now. I can get into that in a separate video, but free night certificates are hard for me in my current phase in life to max out based on the type of places I like to go. There's not a lot of Waldorf Astorias, and there's not a lot of SLH properties right next to the grave of Martin Van Buren or waterfalls in the middle of West Virginia. I should consider the Robinhood Gold. I don't have it right now, but maybe I should. And the best target for Hilton spend is those 5% special cash back cards on things like dining and utilities. And then the last step and path is to harvest the rewards, which is just go forth and use them. Now, I can't really fully harvest them until I know what my other goals require, which again, we'll get to in the future. But in the meantime, I definitely should not be scared of earning cash back or mostly cash back. So for the next several weeks while I'm kind of perfecting this, cash back can be used for lots of different things. Cash flights, cash boutique hotels. Yes, cash to buy Hilton points, or in some cases, cash to just straight up buy a Hilton. When we're going to England this summer, one of the Hiltons we're staying at, I did the math, and it was right around or a little under half a cent per point. I think actually a little under. I thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to pay cash. And in this case, cash is probably going to be with my Aeroplan trick or something like that. But if I had earned a bunch of cash on 5% cash back cards, that's fine. I can do it that way too. And that might be the best value of them all. That's it, everyone. Thank you so much for watching the live stream. I really appreciate it. Not the live stream, the recorded simulation of the live stream. Once again, please click the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. Put your comments down below. What do you think of the path method? Are you looking forward to me doing the other 3 goals, or is there some way you want me to tweak this in the future? I'd be glad to hear from you. If you're not currently a channel member, consider becoming a DUGROZ Diehard. That's a channel member. It's only $3 a month. Cancel anytime, and you get access to early release videos like this one will come out early. But also I have almost 50 members only videos that are on things that are a little more nerdy or too spicy for the algorithm in general. Even things like real strategic number crunching, strategic gift card buying, that kind of stuff is mostly on my members only videos. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, may your spending be frugal and may your points be plenteous. Have a good one.